Okay, so carrying on with the VideoFort Sports Ident tutorial series, we're now going to be looking at developing the actual look. So we're going to be doing the lighting, texturing, and then also setting up the render ready for the compositing in After Effects. And this is exactly where we left off in the previous tutorial. We had just finished doing the camera animation, and it looked like this. So just looking at this now, it's a little bit messy in the viewport. I prefer to work clean, so I went ahead and put everything in a null object, coded camera setup, so that I can just click the traffic light, the top one, and this hides everything in the viewport, but it works just as it did before when you actually look through it. Anyway, so all right, let's start with the lighting, and this is going to be very simple. We're going to do a basic 3-point setup for the lights. So if I get a target light, and this will always come in as a spotlight by default, and I want to move it closer to the text here, and maybe just bring back the fall off and make the angle larger like this. And this is going to be our key light, or the main light. And then I want to copy this, so hold Control, left click and drag down. And I want to call this the fill light, because we're going to throw this across to the other side. So if I reverse the X position, and the intensity for this one is only going to be 25, so not as strong as the main light, but it does just help to make sure that, you know, the other side of the text here is also illuminated, so we don't lose detail completely. Okay, I'm gonna copy this one more time, and let's call this back, and I'm gonna reverse the Z position, so it's gonna be behind the text, but maybe at a shallower angle, and then maybe make it lower also. And just to make sure this is reaching the text. And the intensity for this is going to be greater than both the other lights put together, so 150. And what this will do is give us this nice highlight on the inside of the text, as you can see just there. Okay, the lights, you know, as far as the lighting goes, that is it. It's a basic 3-point light setup. You know, if you're familiar with certain types of light setups, especially in photography, the 3-point setup is one of the most common, and you know, it's always a good failsafe for trying to get decent results quickly. So okay, I'm gonna just push up the target, and you can see that all lights are pointing at the same target because I only copied the lights, but they still use the same target, so that's another cool feature. Okay, I'm gonna go to the lights and select all of them, go to shadow, and I'm gonna have shadow maps soft. And when I render, that just shows you what I have here. So just a bit more detail and a bit more separation in the letters themselves, and as well as the, you know, actual shadows on the floor there. Okay. That's it for the lighting. I want to now do the texturing, and this is also quite simple. For the text, I'm gonna just create a basic red material. So if I double click in the materials section, I want to go to color, and let's make this a red like this. Not pure red, but you know, something close to it, something like this. And then I want to go to reflection and set this to 40, and I only use that number because that's what I used in the example render, so that's why, you know, it seems like I know every single number straight away. Okay, I want to go to specular, and let's create a tall but thin highlight, so it kind of looks really glossy. Maybe bring back the fall off slightly, and push up the inner width to about 5 or so. And then I want to put this onto the text. Just drag and drop onto the actual text, and if you see in here, that's what the texture is going, and you can have this on any of the objects leading up to the actual cloner itself. Okay, so that gives me this. Still very basic, nothing fancy. I think the highlight here is maybe a little bit too weak. I want to have it a bit stronger. So I'm going to go to the material and put the height to 150. And that should brighten that up slightly. And it kind of does. Okay, so that's the basic texture for the text. Very simple. The only thing which is maybe slightly more complex now is the texture for the floor. I'm going to double click to create a new material, and I'm going to go to the color channel, and actually I'll just have this as black. If you look back to the example again, you can see that the floor is, it's this black or dark gray wooden floorboards. And the way I did this was setting the color in here to be like a really dark gray, so 5% on the brightness, 0% saturation. And then I went to the diffusion channel, and this is where I loaded up this image here. Just an image I found on Google, and it's a seamless wooden floorboard texture, so it tiles perfectly. Anyway, so get this and just hit open, and then I want to go to filter and colorize this, and maybe play around with the clipping slightly. So maybe put the low clip to 10, which just means that any value in terms of white to black, white is 100 and then black is 0. So the low clip basically sets a threshold for the blacks. So you could say that anything that's below 10% in terms of white to black is going to get clipped down to 0%. And then the high clip is the same, but the opposite. So anything above whatever threshold you set here will be clipped to 100%, and it just creates more contrast. So with mine set to 80, I think that's what I had in the example. I can quickly just place the texture on the floor here and see what it looks like, and you can start to see the detail in the diffusion channel there. A few issues here. This needs more tiling, and also it's facing the wrong direction. In the example, the floorboards were going perpendicular to the text. So I'm going to go to the plane and just rotate it 90 degrees, so like this. I'm holding shift here to quantize the rotation segments to 10 degrees, so this just locks to 90 like this. And then I want to click on the actual texture, and under projection I want to set this to cubic, and then I can tile this how I need it to tile. So maybe 5 by 5. So when I get close, it starts to look like this. Okay, getting closer to the result. Let's look at this texture and see what's missing. So one obvious thing is the reflections, and then also the bump channel here, which gives us this surface detail. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to the texture again, and I'm going to go to reflection, set this to 20 because I think, if I remember correctly, that's the same as I had in the video. And then I want to go to diffusion. Let me copy this whole channel, go to the bump map, and let's paste this here. And already when I do that in the viewport, you're gonna see a difference. And now if I render, I get something like this. So getting closer, but still not the same. Two things. The reflection here is being affected by the bump map, which is actually accurate because, you know, if you had a bumpy surface and it was reflective at the same time, that texture would be, you know, part of that reflection. It wouldn't look perfect like it did in the example video here, as you can see. So clearly you can see here that there is some bump map, but still the reflection is smooth, and this was just a stylistic choice. You can get that effect by going to reflection and untick use bump. So now the reflection will reflect perfectly without any texture, and I just prefer how that looked. Okay, I'm gonna go to the texture again, and I want to adjust the specular, and here again I'm gonna have it to be quite tall and very thin, so we just get this very thin but sharp highlight sweeping across this side of the logo here. And that's it for the texture. The only other thing missing now is a sky object to give us some more reflections in the scene, because right now, particularly on the text, you know, it's only reflecting the floor, and there isn't much going on anywhere else. So if I get a sky object, I want to load up another material, and I'm going to be using this Studio HDRI, and this should be available to download with the other project files. But I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to go to filter and colorize this so it's black and white, and then I can copy this in the color channel and also place it in the luminance channel. And we don't need specular, so I'll switch this off, and I want to drop this onto the sky. So now when I render, I'm going to get a bit more reflection on the text and just a slightly more interesting look. The only issue here is that, you know, in the render you can see the texture in the background, and I don't like how that looks. So I want to go to Sky, Cinema 4D tags, compositing, and I want to untick scene by camera so that when we render still, it's not going to be visible. Okay, let's look through the camera and just double check that everything is working fine before we move on. And just another issue which I missed out here, and it's the fact that because now we have this sky object reflecting in the scene, it reflects all the way to the edge of the floor. So we have this sharp cutoff, and you know, that's very jarring, and we don't want that. If you look back to the example again, you can see that there is a slight fall off, and then it kind of fades off into the black. So what I have to do here is exclude the floor from being seen by the sky. So if I go to the compositing tag on the sky, I want to go to exclusion and then drag the floor here. And then if I render now, you'll see that it just falls off into the black, and that looks more seamless. Okay, so as far as setting up the lighting, texturing, and you know, just the actual render, that's it. I guess if we go to the render settings here, the anti-aliasing, this needs to be you know, not the default geometry, because that's just for previews. But if I set this to best and then 1 by 1 I'm gonna have it to 2x2 with a threshold of 5%, so it just looks a bit cleaner when I run the render. You know, it does take a little bit more time, but it's what you want. Okay, so that's it for the look. You can look through your animation at different points in time and see what it looks like to see if you are on the right track. And I think this looks okay. And I really like how this highlight looks as the camera sweeps across the ground, as it kind of, you know, goes to the left, disappears for a short while as this is unfolding, and then kind of re-enters the frame on this side here. It's just something else in the scene that's constantly moving, and that's always a good thing. Okay, so the next step in this process is preparing all of this for use in After Effects. So aside from just throwing out the render into After Effects, we also need some 3D data. So we need the camera data, and as well we need some light data. The lights are going to be needed so they can be used as references for the positioning of the optical flares in After Effects. That's how these lights back here were done. The actual positioning of the lights was done in C4D, and then we attached the lens flares onto those lights. So let's do that setup. I'm gonna jump out of this camera, and I'm gonna actually just get another null object here. Let's call this scene, and this is gonna contain all the lights in the sky, and then I can switch this off as well, just so I can continue to work cleaner. Okay, I want to get a light, and let's call this flare, and I'm gonna go to MoGraph, and let's put this in a cloner. But actually, before we do that, let's change some of the settings on this light. I'm gonna go to the general tab here, and under illumination, you know, all the way down here, I want to make sure that this no illumination switch is ticked. That way the light doesn't actually have any effect on the objects in the scene, but I can still show you a quick preview of what this might look like by the time we go into After Effects. So if I go to the general tab again, I want to go to visible light and set this to visible. So if I hit render, you're gonna see it's kind of foggy. It's too large, basically. I want to go to the visibility tab now and lower the outer distance. I'm gonna have it at something like 20. And if I hit render, still too large, so maybe something like 5 will work better. Okay, this should be good for the preview. Okay, I'm gonna throw this into a cloner. So if I hold ALT and select the cloner, it will automatically be a child of the cloner. And I want to set the mode to grid array, and it's going to be in a 3x4 count in the X and Y, but 1 in Z. And this dark gray color is kind of hard to see in this whole scene, so I want to go to transform and set the color of these lights to white, just so we can see them easier in the project here. And actually, I think I wanted this to be 4x3, not 3x4, like this. And I want to make this small and just bring it in. And this represents a single set of these lights you can see in the back here. So let's go back to C4D, and if I just quickly render, you can see that's what it looks like. And this is just for preview purposes. I can still see these lights are actually affecting the scene, so I'm not sure why that's happening. Okay, I accidentally unticked the no illumination switch, so let's switch that back on. And now we can still see the lights, but they don't have any effect on the actual scene. They are just placeholders. Okay, I think I need to bring this in a bit closer and tighter, like this. And now I need to throw all of these into a second cloner. So if I select this cloner, hold Alt, go to Mode Graph, I want to get another cloner. And I'm going to set the mode for this to radial. And they're on the wrong plane. I need to change this to XZ, like this. And I need to push up the radius so that it's large enough to contain to be at the edge of the floor here. The light which is furthest away needs to be flush with the edge of the floor. So let's set this to 250, and that puts it in the perfect position. And currently this is going in a full circular pattern, but if you look to the example, these lights are only actually there behind the text. And also just a quick count on how many lights we have. So that's the center light, and the other side there are 3 other lights, so there should be 7 in total. So if I go to the cloner, I want to set the count to 7, and now we also need to shift them so that they're only back here. So if I go to the start and end angle, that's how you do that basically. So I'm going to set this to 90 and the start angle to -90. So you end up with something like this. And actually this isn't central. You can see that it's still shifted to the left here. So we have to offset it back until it's in the right place. And 13 degrees seems to be the right number. I can jump into the camera here just to double check, and that seems to be correct. So in the final frame here, we should just be seeing 1 light in the center and 2 either side, and that's exactly what we have here. The only problem now is that the lights are a little bit too small. I didn't realize that I made them too small in the second cloner. So we need to increase the size of this. And also, again, this is starting to disappear. So I'm going to go to the second cloner, go to transform, and then set the color to white. And going back to this, we need to increase the Y size. And now I have something like this. That seems closer to what we have over here. And I can go to the light and go to details and go to visibility and set the outer distance to 20 this time, so that it's larger on the preview. Maybe that's too large, so something like 10, and there you go. So you can actually see this in the reflections. Okay, so now that we're finished with setting up the positions for the lights, we now need to change this whole setup to something that After Effects will recognize as a reference. Because right now, you know, we actually only have 1 light, and then we've just cloned it a bunch of times. After Effects is not going to recognize this hierarchy here. These need to be actual separate lights. But before we make that change, I need to go back to the light, go to General, and we need to make sure now that illumination is not ticked. So these lights will affect the scene, but then we can set the intensity to 0. Because if we had no illumination still ticked, which was okay as far as just getting a preview in the scene, in After Effects those lights would not be imported. So make sure this is not ticked when you export, and then to make sure the lights don't have any effect on the scene, just set the intensity to 0. But when I do this now, I don't see the volumetric or visible light, so we don't see where the lights are. But I guess we can still see them in the viewport, which is okay. Anyway, now that we've sorted that, to convert this setup to something that After Effects will understand, we need to right-click and then click Current State to Object. And what this will do is generate some actual lights based on this setup that we have up here. And there's a hierarchy of 6 different cloners, and each one contains the 12 lights which make up each section of the lights back here. Okay, so this will now be recognized as references when we go into After Effects. Okay, we can just disable these other lights because we don't need them, but let's keep them there just in case, you know, we need to come back and tweak the positioning some more. Okay, another thing we need to prepare for the export to After Effects is the camera. These 3 cameras here would be present in After Effects if we were to export the scene right now. But this morph camera, because it's not an actual camera, you know, it's a setup which is being created. But this morph camera, which is not technically a real camera, you know, it's a setup that we created using Expresso and you know, this camera morph tag. This will not be recognized as a camera in After Effects, so we have to bake it into the scene first, and then it will come up in After Effects. So to bake this, first of all, we need to go to Window and then Timeline, and under View you want to make sure that automatic mode is ticked. Then I want to drag this here, click on it, and then go to Functions and then Bake Objects, and you want to tick the position, rotation, and parameters, and then click OK, and it's going to bake through. And now we have a bunch of these keyframes on every single frame, and then we also have this other object now called Morph Camera Copy. And if I look through this, you can see that it's the movement of the camera morph setup, except for it's been baked into this one camera. So if you were to come back into Cinema and change the camera morph setup, you would also have to rebake it so that this copy is the same as the updated setup also. Okay, so this will now be recognized in After Effects because it's just a normal camera. And that's it. The scene is now ready to export. Go to your render settings, and you know, once you set your output width and height, which for me was 1280 by 720, all frames 30 FPS. You also want to go to the Save tab, set your file type and save path, and most importantly, you want to go to this little switch here, Compositing Project File, and you want to make sure that you save one of these also, and then include 3D data, and the target application should be After Effects by default anyway. And then when you're ready to go, you just run the render, and then in the same location that your render goes to, that's where the compositing project file will go to, and that's going to be very useful later on in After Effects. Now, for this whole process to work, you need to have the correct Exchange plugins installed between your After Effects and your Cinema 4D. And this is something which has been covered elsewhere extensively, so I will provide links that will show you how to do the correct setup for you to be able to export your 3D data. But this will actually be even easier in newer versions of After Effects. After Effects CC, for example, has a Cinema 4D plugin built into it. It's called Cineware, and it's very useful for dragging Cinema 4D scenes directly into your project files section and just extracting the 3D data that way too. That's something which has also been covered elsewhere, and I'm going to provide links to both methods to the producer, who should put them in the descriptions below, and so you will know how to do the correct setup. But that's it for this tutorial. It was quite a lengthy one. There was a lot to cover, but there's just one more part left where we'll do the compositing in After Effects to finish off the look. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.